Okay, I'm gonna talk about phishing. Phishing, the exciting horror stories and the very boring antidote. So what will you learn today? I'm gonna talk a bit about how a phishing attack is carried out. I'm gonna bring up some embarrassing examples, some case studies of more or less successful accounts of phishing. And I'm going to talk about how you should work to prevent phishing and why you probably won't succeed in preventing phishing. Sorry. I won't tell you how someone can be stupid enough to wire $46.7 million to an offshore account. And I won't tell you anything that's actually big news. There's no new research. It's just my view on common sense on phishing. So before I start, I'm going to talk a bit about me. My name is Hanna. I'm Hanna Lidzell. I'm an organizer of the IT security conference SecT. And we held it in Stockholm last weekend. And I'm also a collector of security-related stories and images, mostly stock pictures from security-related news. Those things are usually hilarious. If you find them, send them to me. My favorite is a gun shooting DDoS. It's funny. I work with managed security services, mostly IDS and CM solutions, and this I meet a lot of clients, and I meet a lot of IT departments of various sizes around the world. No, around Sweden mostly, around Europe. So I think I'm pretty up to date on the issues you guys are facing in your daily operations. So, the case studies. I've made them kind of anonymous, but we're going to talk about two kind of standard scams or phishing accounts. We're going to talk about some spear phishing, some more targeted phishing, and we're going to talk about ubiquity and the really big wire transfer, because that's kind of scary. First of all, I'm going to talk about a scam or a phishing attempt most of you have probably heard about in the news of some sort. The scene is a friend of mine, Clara. We went to middle school together. She starts messaging me on Facebook. We haven't talked in forever, so I'm kind of suspicious right away. And she wants my help. And of course, this is kind of suspicious. Why would Clara talk to me? We haven't talked ever. But I figure I probably know what's going on, so I'd love to help her out. And apparently she's having an issue with her bank. Could I just please help her with something? That's fishy. Okay, don't do that. Because the thing is, nowadays, back in the days it was pretty easy with bank scams. You could probably send out phishing emails to everyone, and people would give you their account information and their next, 10 one-time passcodes, the ones you had on the scratchy card. And you can't do that anymore. Well, most banks can't do that anymore, but on some you can. So the thing you have to do nowadays is that you have to guide the user through the entire session in order to actually acquire. Well, it's the easiest way to get access to the bank account. And sorry, lost my way. And in order to do this, you'd rather want contact with the target all the way. This is actually two accounts on phishing in one, so it's a pretty good one. Because firstly, the user, the attacker has to gain access to Clara's user account on Facebook. In this particular instance, they posted a clickbait link, 10 things kids of the 90s won't understand about the world. Picture of an audio tape and a pencil, something like that. Clara clicks the link, and it seems like she's logged out of Facebook. That's no good. Clara wants to be on Facebook, so she enters her credentials and presses login. Bingo, the attacker has access to Clara's Facebook account. They wait for a while, and suddenly they start messaging Clara's friends at random, probably when they know that Clara isn't at the computer. They know because they have her Facebook, right? So they start messaging and they message me. And now the target is, as said, to just guide me through the authentication to the internet bank. In this instance, nothing really happened because I wasn't the first one to contact Clara and tell her she was hacked. But she did a couple of let's walk through it. She did a couple of things wrong. She clicked the link, and she gave out her account information. Didn't verify the site. That's bad. But she told her friends straight away. Told her not to give out her account information. She informed them about the issue. She asked the people with the fraudulent link to take it down because that person was also infected in some way. She logged out from all her active sessions, which is good, and she changed her Facebook password. And in this particular instance, I'm sorry, Clara did something else wrong. She didn't change all her passwords, and Clara used the same account for her email, same password and a login for her email. And this means, of course, that Clara's email was also compromised. This is a very good example of why phishing on, for example, Facebook's account might actually be a target, well, a vulnerability to your business. Because I bet a lot of you have users, especially users who worked at your workplace for a long time, who used their workplace email for private matters. And that way you could probably lose data. Not good. Okay. Next case study, Frederick the Friend and the Netflix account. Frederick is about my age, a bit older. He's very tech savvy. And you don't think that Frederick is the guy that would be targeted by phishing. He don't, well, targeted, but he doesn't think he's the guy that would actually buy the scam. But the thing is, Frederick has a case of bad luck. He's slightly hungover. He has bank issues. One of the large Swedish banks has had some issues with the credit cards lately, and he's on that bank. He has a new email client, so he's not shown all of the email address when he's looking at the email. And he's already logged into Netflix. So why does this matter? The email client matters because this particular email was sent from Netflix payment services at yourdomain.com or something like that. If you see the whole address, you're not going to care. But they set their display name to Netflix account management, which is a really easy thing to do. You can do it either in your email client, or if you're a bit more tech savvy in the SMTP transfer, in the data segment of the SMTP transfer. It's not tricky at all. You could actually do a better spoof and actually change the email address too, but they weren't that interested in succeeding. They just sent out a lot of mail. And since Fredrik was one of the ones who clicked the link, he got forwarded to this site. It looks pretty legit, right? It's a good one. A couple of years ago, the sites committing phishing in this way was generally pretty bad. You could most of the time tell straight away that this is not a legit site. Nowadays, it's not that difficult to make a good website, and most people know how to do it. So this is how they look. There's also some indicators. The padlock, it's not supposed to be there. That doesn't help. It's supposed to be in the address bar. But if you just look for a padlock, who's gonna know, right? And there's no real spelling errors or something. I found 2 small errors. There's 1 letter wrong and the price is wrong, but other than that, this is correct. Good. So 3 errors. It's probably something you'll miss if you think on your that you're on a legit site. There's also, I don't know if you can see it. Shit. Sorry, wrong one. This one, it says log out. It's a bit to the corner. And since Fredrik was already logged in, he thought that since usually when you do this, you should always have to log in when you update your payment info. But Fredrik was already on Netflix. So when he saw the logout thing, he thought that, it's probably okay. I'm already authenticated and this is fine. So Fredrik entered his credit card information, and the prompt that was shown to him was, your credit card is faulty. Please try with a credit card in another bank. That's It's mean. That's when he realized that he was fooled, and he called to cancel his credit card right away, and there was no real trouble this time either. But there could have been. Next case. It's my aunt, and it's not really, but let's say it's my aunt. And she works at a large Swedish corporation. And one day she's called up by something that sounds, you know, like the Indian tech support scam that's been going on for a couple of years. Someone calls and claims to be calling from Microsoft, and there's something wrong with your computer. The thing is, this time they didn't just claim that there was something wrong with her computer, they actually said that they were calling on behalf of her IT department. They knew the name of her boss, they knew the name of the head of IT, and they knew the name of the head of security. So when my aunt asked questions, she got correct answers. This is actually increasingly common. It's most of you probably have information about your company published online. This makes it very easy to research you. So when my aunt asked questions, she got correct answers. Since, however, this time they had good luck instead of bad luck, the call was disconnected. So she decided to call me up for some reason. I don't work with this company, but she decided to call me up and ask, is this a legit thing? No, it's not. You should probably call someone else that works at your company, preferably. Okay, this is the last case study. It's about Ubiquity, and it's a company that doesn't really matter, but a couple of years ago, this spring, they had a statement put out that said it had been targeted for employee impersonation and fraudulent requests from an outside entity targeting the company's finance department. The result of this was that someone wired $46.7 million. That's a lot of money to an unknown account. They said that the investigation after this uncovered no evidence of outside penetration or leak of corporate information, including financial and account information. So their statement and our best bet is that they were actually targets of phishing. Why would you wire that? There's probably two ways that this could have happened. Either a spoofed email, as I talked about earlier. Someone sends an email claiming to be the CEO or CIO. For example, I guess it's someone pretty high up if you wire a lot of money. And somehow they probably said another reply address, or they just keep sending emails until they get the money. The more likely thing that could have happened is that they actually phished the account of the CEO or CIO or some kind of financial director, resulting in direct access to the company email. From there, they could actually use the legit account. Even if they just have email access, they could probably find out a lot and contact someone that's approved to wire these amounts of money. Probably what speaks for this scenario is that they probably would have had to know who to contact regarding these kind of transfers, and that's probably something you would find in an email history. So, what I've talked about, or the two kinds of attacks, are actually mass attacks, the ones that Frederick and Clara was targeted in. It's a wide spectrum of attack. They have a very low success rate. Somewhere between the numbers I've heard is between 0.2 and 5%. I think that's still pretty high. It's probably less than that. I'd say 0.2 to 5% of the people actually opening the emails or receiving them to their inbox instead of the junk mail. It's more or less a hit and miss activity. It's something that's probably, each scam is only active for a very short amount of time. And it's pretty low profit per success, but considering that you can send a huge amount of emails, even if you just get $500 or so out of each target per average, you're probably going to do pretty well for yourself. And even if your actual primary target isn't the money or the credit card information, you can just gather up account information, store it in a server in China, and sell it somewhere. That's a huge business as well. This kind of mass attacks are often detected by some kind of in-house threat protection, IDS, host protection. It's detectable if it happens on the company network, but it's probably not detectable if it happens at home. The other type of more troublesome nature is the spear phishing, the targeted phishing. It's targeted attacks, like the ones targeted toward Ubiquity, and also, for example, my aunt. They are well researched and are carried out in a pretty small number per attack, which means that they won't be caught by junk email, or they probably won't. The company probably won't send out a warning email about this kind of activity because they probably won't detect it. The attack is also tailored to the target, so it's probably kind of believable, and they have a very specific goal in mind. For example, there was an attack towards RSA a couple of years ago, where they wanted the target to open an XLS file. Someone it was named recruitment plan or something, and the target opened the file, injected a 0-day towards Flash, and they started working in more or less the way Marcus showed, probably a bit more advanced. And the rumor is that the master encryption key for all the RSA devices was lost. They actually had to replace all the one on their military-grade equipment. It was pretty embarrassing. These attacks are also very difficult to detect, since, as kind of like Marcus said, you're just doing legit things. So why would this trigger any alerts? It's not prohibited to type your email somewhere. It's not prohibited to open this XLS file. You're probably going to be fine. So, why do people keep buying into phishing? There's actually been a study made on this. I have entered the reference to this scientific paper, but I can't actually see it now. There's a couple of... This is a pretty small study. It's based on, I think, 50 people. But everyone had the same troubles, regardless of their age, the amount of hours per week spent in front of the computer, their perceived tech savviness, and so on. But either way, the main objective, the main categories of the three big problems is lack of knowledge, visual deception, and bounded attention. It's more or less about people don't really know how this works and what to look for. They know about phishing, but they don't really know how it works or why it works, so it's pretty difficult to detect. They don't really know how to, if we look at the bottom category, spot the security indicators, and they especially don't notice when the security indicators are missing. Because when you do security awareness training, you probably talk about a couple of indicators that you should look for. You notice them if they're wrong or out of place, but you won't notice them if they're actually just plain missing. They're also very good and very deceptive. It's not that difficult to, as I said, set up a good website. You could hide links behind images. You could hide links between... You could have a text link and seemingly pointed at a valid URL, but when you click it, you're actually directed somewhere else. And the look and feel of everything is pretty much right. So most people don't actually question these things. In this study, most people, I think, had between 20 and 50% errors when trying to decide if a website was real or phishing, or real or a scam. On both sides, generally they thought that the correct websites were phishing ones and the phishing website were real ones. So that's part of the problem. So how do we fix this? You really can't. Because the problem is people. And no amount of security training. You're never going to get the budget to actually have your employees in security training for more than, like, say 2 hours regarding specifically phishing. And just doing this once in a 2-hour session talking about phishing won't be enough. No one will actually remember this when they get this email from Netflix or whatever. It's also an issue of trust. Most people trust what they get to their email. They trust the systems that you installed. They trust the email junk mail folder. They know that they don't trust the Gmail junk mail folder. They trust what goes to the inbox is correct. So what can we do? Awareness training. Well, I said that didn't work. It doesn't. But there has to be a very low level of awareness. You have to know that these attacks exist, even if educating about the specific attacks probably won't help you. Educating about their existence will. You can't get people to prevent them, but you can get people to actually start questioning things. You could build a good support system, because people should be able to trust your support system. It's not your user's job to actually do your security work. You should do your security work for them. You should have a good security policy, and you should be serious about your security policy. It should be a valid security policy, it should be easy to follow, and you should help your users understand why your security policy is so important. You should lead by example. You should not have a you should have a good structure, security structure in-house, and you should not teach your users to ignore warnings of security fault. And you should generally be a good person. We'll get back to the good person part, but generally, this whole security policy thing, how many of you would say that you prohibit your users from actually using their work email for private matters? None? Yeah, by policy. Yeah, a couple. So, say for example, these Facebook scams or Netflix scams or whatever, if your work email is not set up to Netflix or Facebook, if it's not connected to these services, when you get this scam email, you won't click the link because you know my account is not active on my work address. I don't have any private accounts on connected to my work address. But if users have, for example, the Netflix set up to the work email, they get the account warning, they click the link, they follow it, they probably have the same password or a similar password to their Netflix address or Facebook address as they do to their work email, and that way you're screwed. They have access to your company structure. It's game over, more or less, because they will be able to work themselves in from that. But if you're, as said, if they don't have any private information connected to their work email, when they get the Netflix scam, they'll say, this is a scam. I shouldn't click this link. I'm actually gonna jump ahead. How many of you have internal systems with this warning on it? Yeah? Self-signed certificates? More of you? Yeah, probably. Whenever you teach your users to click past these warnings, you tell them to ignore the signs that something is fishy. You can't do this. It's really, really bad for you. The small cost or time cost of fixing these errors will actually help improve your security lots. And help your users in general, even at home. Because when we do something repeatedly, we teach ourselves that this is a good thing to do. We're gonna go back. So, leading by example. Except the certificate thing, I started looking a bit at our banks. This is the login page for the four largest banks in Sweden, I think. If we start looking at the top one, this URL, if you don't know how DNS works generally, this is a stupid URL. You won't know where you end up. The site, if you enter it, it has an old copyright stamp. It has very sloppy graphics, and it doesn't adapt to screen. Why is this important? This is important because users still live in the world where the look and feel of the website is relevant to whether this is a scam or not. And if they know that your regular bank site is badly made, they'll probably buy into this. It's the same thing with the other ones. This ridiculously long URL, it's completely unnecessary. You could probably do this way better if you wanted to. It still doesn't adapt to screen. It looks like something I made in a 5th grade project together with Clara. And it's the same thing with most of these. What's actually most alarming, this one has a pretty good URL, but it has a description of, it has an image of a padlock, the same as the Netflix one, the Netflix phishing one, with a description saying that if this padlock is here, this site is okay. The problem is it doesn't specify where the padlock should be. The padlock should be in your browser, in the navigation bar, or at the bottom of on the browser page, not actually integrated into the website. Most users doesn't know this because they don't care, and if your bank tells them that we have this image here, it's okay, they're gonna believe it because the bank is a good authority, and then we don't lead by example. We teach them bad behavior. We teach them a sense of false security, and that, together with this awareness training that doesn't really teach them something, just gives them the confidence to give their information away for free easily without thinking about it. And that's why this is bad as well. So, no security con is actually complete without a Dilbert pick. So this is why scam phishing works. And my headline for this is "Be a good person." And what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say, don't be this dick. Please don't be. Don't do this. Don't give your information away for free. It's not good. But when one of your users does, and if this happens, you want them to call you or your security department straight away. You don't want them to try to hide this. And this is very, very common. Either they think this probably isn't a real threat, or they think, oh, I was so stupid, I'm going to hide this forever and ever and ever. You want to be a person that handles these kind of events so well and with such good manners that your users aren't afraid to come to you. The security industry as a whole, usually, we're pretty bad at this. We like laughing at people who does things wrong. And that's the completely wrong way to go about it. It's when you have users who, when they see something that they are kind of insecure about, they pick up the phone, they call you and they ask. That's when you have a secure system. That's when you have actually educated your users. You can't expect to get them to a higher level of security awareness than that. That's where you want them at. You want them to call you, even in the middle of the night, probably. So that's it. Be a good person. Since I thought I had 30 minutes instead of 40, we're going to end this with a guess game. We have an example of 4 URLs, 5. And I'm going to ask you guys to think about at what domain you think you'll end up. Because as you see, most of these have several domains listed. I'm going to need my sheet sheet. Because I can see this. Okay, the top one. Should we use a mic for this, or should we? I'm just gonna tell you. The top one, you're gonna end up at the domain. Let's see. www in the top domain test. I think if my mother clicked this, she'd think she'd end up here. Okay. The next one, option 2. Where do you think you'll end up? test.com. This one is quite easy. The next one, where do you think you'll end up? You're probably starting to get the hang of this. Example.com, exactly. And now we have the second to last one. Where do you think you'll end up? Example.com, you think? Oh, no, this isn't punctuation. This is a mathematical operator. Sorry, you'll end up at domain.com. A bit depending on how your browser interprets the link, but since I've inserted a punctuation that doesn't really look like, it looks like all the other ones, right? It's not. And today, if you insert this into Facebook, it's actually going to show up as two different links. But it's not really that visible unless you look for it. So people's gonna probably gonna press the last part of the link because that's how people work, and they're gonna end up at domain.com. And then we have the last one. This is a bit trickier. Anyone know where we'll end up? Yeah, exactly. Because, well, this sends us away, and it looks like we're actually just trying to authenticate at example.com, but we're not. We're actually going to example.com. If you're interested in this, you should probably read the RFC. It's not that fun, but it's good to know. That's all I had. Thank you.